What up? We're back with another episode of Retro Redux. And today we're talking about the movie that changed it all for the better actually maybe for the worst. Today we're talking about Deadpool, the first one at least.
Hear the music.
I
I'm touching myself tonight.
Deadpool is about a mercenary assassin named Wade Wilson who, after being diagnosed with pretty much life-ending cancers on top of one another, he becomes desperate to find a cure and survive to live on with the love of his life, Vanessa. Unfortunately, that means signing up for an underground Weapon X ripoff program that ultimately gives him new abilities, however severely disfigures him, in an attempt to return to his original physical state in order to resume his relationship with his lover. He hunts down the dude that made him look like this, aka Ajax, alongside a bunch of colorful characters like his friends. Maybe Deadpool will prevail. He does. There's a second one and a third one is coming out. This movie has to get a ton of credit, considering my only interpretations of this character at the time prior to its release were the Marvel Ultimate Alliance game.
In the hospital, you stabbed me in the leg. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right. But I had to. You were trying to eat the last cheesy puff.
And the Hulk versus Wolverine cartoon. Outside of that, that's all I saw of that character, and he left a huge imprint on my brain, considering just how unique character that knew that they were in a comic book was at the time. But after this movie, I feel like that trope of breaking the fourth wall was just kind of in everything. Now, when it comes to this movie, to be honest with you, it feels like the epitome of just going down a notch. A lot of the positive aspects I had or experienced with this film the first time I saw it was really just the shock value of it. Don't get me wrong, that's not to say that I felt like this movie was overrated or is bad by any means. It's just not as amazing as it was watching it for the first time. It was definitely better watching it this time than, any of my previous watchings after the first, because I don't know why. After the first time I saw this, I didn't really like this movie. I don't know what happened. I guess maybe because I would only catch it on like FX or whatever. Despite all that, I still really enjoy this film. I do believe that this film changed superhero movies for the best, and in some cases the worst. For example, without this movie, we wouldn't have gotten movies like Joker or The Suicide Squad. But because of this movie, we also got the Snyder Cut.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord.
I can explain. Let me explain.
Now, if you've ever paid attention to any of my videos, you would know I'm not the biggest Snyder Cut fan, but we'll get to that maybe someday. I don't know. I don't think I could watch that movie again. I can't. I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I watched 8 hours of that movie. Like, that would be insane. But maybe. Now, if you know anything about Deadpool, you'll know that the epitome, or the whole gimmick to his character, I guess, is that he breaks the fourth wall. There's tons of things like crossing over to the Warner Brothers sides of things, Green Lantern, or even talking about things under their own banner like Wolverine, and the whole kerfuffle with the X-Men timeline. That's actually kind of funny.
Talk to the professor.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
Then we get into Ryan Reynolds, the dude who, he pretty much made this movie. Turns out he leaked the test footage that was actually implemented into this movie in the highway scene. And this dude was super into the character for years, and it turned out successful for him. And I loved the Deadpool character. His costume, his movement, and quirks are directly out of the comic books. Last video I mentioned Shaggy in like the perfect casting, J. Jonah Jameson, Robert Downey Jr., who I literally called Iron Man by my mistake. Ryan Reynolds is a part of that tier, if not that tier of like upper echelon perfect casting. The costume is really cool, and I actually forgot about the fact that he also has like a starter costume into like a main costume progression in this movie, and it's actually pretty cool. I also like that they gave the character the white eyes from the comic books and the cartoons so he can emote. I also think that him just having eyes in this movie would have grounded it in a way that would have made it seem completely low budget. The body horror in this movie is also somehow incredibly funny, even though in other cases I would normally cringe. That whole little mini fight scene he has with Colossus on the highway is hilarious to this day to me.
It just gets worse for you, big boy.
This is embarrassing. Please, stay down.
The torture montage at the beginning of the film is, especially the successful torture to activate Deadpool's power, is a like extreme nightmare fuel. And the jokes in this movie, they go a long way because of Ryan Reynolds. He is the funniest character, and I want to say 75% of the jokes he delivers in this movie hit.
Listen, I decided to become a crime-fighting shit swizzler at the Neverland mansion of some creepy, old, bald, Heaven's Gate-looking motherfucker. On that day, I'll send your shiny happy ass a friend request.
Then we get a ton of jokes that aren't funny, and I think the reason why the jokes aren't funny because, to be honest with you, it seems like they just had Ryan film a bunch of scenes from a specific angle or under the mask so you could see his jaw moving, and then they could just have him like riff on a microphone so they could add it in post for ADR, because a ton of the jokes just feel like they're Ryan Reynolds freestyling, as well as some other actors that he has some freestyles with in this movie. Not all of them work, but majority of them do, and I think that's enough. Especially being the first movie of its kind, I completely understand the more experimental approach in its filmmaking, but it does get a bit tiresome here and there. I do also like the tiny little idiosyncrasies he gives to Deadpool in certain moments. Like, Deadpool is just really smart, and he performs like minor actions during conversations and other set pieces that move the story along and develop his character a little bit. I also like that he's super weird. Like, for some reason he's taking a brochure for haunted Segway tours or other little tiny things that just remind me of the things that make this character a little bit more entertaining than some just rando edgelord who breaks the fourth wall. He's actually just like a weird geeky type of dude at the same time, which I think is pretty cool.
Motherfucker, you're the world's worst friend. Well, joke's on you. I'm living to 102 and then dying. Like the city of Detroit.
His love interest, Vanessa, portrayed by Morena Baccarin, honestly is one of my favorite love interests in any comic book movie. She plays a quick-witted person who has great chemistry with Wade, which is something you can't say for a ton of superhero movies. Their trauma bonding intro is cliche but incredibly sweet, and in fact their entire relationship is sweet, and their relationship displayed in that little montage near the beginning legitimizes the cancer revelation scene and elevates this movie a level past its subgenre contemporaries like Kick-Ass, Spawn, or even Blade to me.
Vanessa's already working on plan A, B, all the way through Z. Me? I'm memorizing the details of her face. Like it's the first time I'm seeing it. Or the last.
Mr. Wilson.
I felt pretty bad for Wade, considering his whole conflict in the second half of the film is him hiding from Vanessa, hiding his scarring because he's afraid of how she'll react. And it's so jarring considering how much of like a brash character he was. In fact, not jarring, I guess I could say like sobering to see that dude being, so insecure, and it endeared me to him for sure. Then we get into the other side characters in the movie, like Weasel, portrayed by TJ Miller. He actually has some funny lines. I used to be a fan of TJ Miller. I thought his delivery did get a bit tiresome at times, but there were times that I found him entertaining, and this was one of those times.
I'm sorry, you are haunting. Your face is the stuff of nightmares.
Like a testicle with teeth.
You will die alone.
Like I said, some pretty funny lines here and there. He comes off as more of like the perfect just bookend to some scenes.
Did she just put a gift card in your mouth?
I also came up with a little theory during this rewatch. Is it me, or did Weasel give Wade cancer to win the Deadpool? I mean, I know it's kind of out of nowhere. It's just insane how intense Deadpool's condition immediately is, like stage 4. I don't know why. It just felt like so jarring and out of nowhere for him. But then at the same time, Weasel says a couple things during this movie that just made me think a little bit.
So the doctor says the bad news is you don't have that long to live. So the patient says, how long do I have? The doctor says 5. The guy says 5 what? The doctor says 4, 3, 2.
If I remember correctly, him betraying him in the second movie, you know, it's in line with his character if Marvel Ultimate Alliance ever taught me anything, right? Then we got Colossus. This is the first X-Men that we see in this movie, X-Man, Metal guy. And you know, I really like this depiction of Colossus. It's way more in line with a, you know, a different interpretation of the character, like in the cartoons or in the comics. He's like a huge hulking guy, which is pretty cool. I also like his personality, something that he completely lacked in the other X-Men movies that he appeared in. His corniness is pretty charming. It gives him a unique personality, and it seems like Professor X's teachings have completely influenced Colossus here, which I think is also pretty cool. And the comic accurate look is cool. Completely CGI this dude out. Don't make him have these like metal skin. Negasonic teenage warhead. You know, she's cool or whatever. You know, she has a smaller role here and she's kind of one note but incredibly charming. We get Dopinder, another character who has a smaller role and is kind of one note until we get, you know, some development off screen that takes place that's pretty funny. He's adorable. And you know, I love the Bondru in the trunk storyline that they gave him. That's pretty funny. We also have Blind Owl, and Blind Owl, she's funny. Another one note character, but it is nice to have someone for Deadpool to bounce off of, even though it usually ends in a joke at her expense. And shout out to this movie for you know, making me laugh at a fart joke in 2016.
Hashtag drive-by.
Now let's get into the villain of the movie. Now, Ajax is, you know, kind of whatever. I don't think he's a bad villain by any means, but considering a true costume or any unique gravitas to this character, it is a bit passable. You know, Ed Skrein doesn't do a bad job by any means, but I just feel like the script and the story really does nothing for the character or for the actor to really stand out. But I do think, you know, the power that they presented with the character is pretty cool. You know, we've seen it before, but the way he can bounce off of Wade Wilson, where Wade is more so verbally pain-proof, this guy is physically pain-proof, but he can't deal with, you know, the pain from listening to Wade talk, I think is a cool aspect of their relationship. I also think, you know, some of the things were kind of funny, like, you know, his name, the whole Francis subplot. But then, you know, he does have some funny lines here and there.
You grow back body parts now, Wade. When I'm finished, parts will have to grow back here.
Good one. Yep, that was a good one.
His sidekick, you know, Angel is just, you know, she's just kind of there, portrayed by Gina Carano, our favorite actress. She does have like a funny moment with Colossus though. The soundtrack is cool. The Deadpool song sounds like a Your Favorite Martian song by Ray William Johnson.
Every bad guy put them right in their place. Revenge. I'm gonna give you a taste. I'm sexy as hell, but I cover my face.
Angel in the Morning was actually ruined by Family Guy when they spoofed this movie.
Just call me Anus of the morning. Anus.
The CGI in this movie is pretty hit or miss. It's good, like when it comes to Colossus. I think it's actually really, really good. He feels tangible in the world. It's kind of bad when it comes to certain scenes with Deadpool, like where he's flipping and bipping around and stuff like that, like a pinball. It looks a little eh. I think the worst offender of this, though, just like bad CGI, has to be the entire highway car chase flip scene. It did not look good. Overall, I think this movie is honestly a very unique case. It was experimental for its time and it really worked out, and it's still really good despite the fact that I feel like a lot of what I loved about this movie came from the shock value. But the things that I still do love about this movie are the integral pieces to it, which is the plot, the conflict that Wade is going through, his relationship with Vanessa, his interactions with the characters, and his interactions with the antagonist for the most part. Is this the best R-rated comic book movie though? I don't know. A lot of people think Logan. A lot of people think Joker, maybe even the Suicide Squad and a couple others. I don't know if this is number one, but just for the sake of impact, I gotta say this might be top 3 off of impact alone and influence. It seemed like every movie after this wanted to be Deadpool, and like nobody could. And if I remember correctly, I like the sequel a little bit more than the first one, so whenever I get to it, let's see if I still feel the same way. But what do y'all think? Do you think Deadpool was the worst thing for superhero movies or the best thing for superhero movies? For me, after watching this and considering we escaped that era of like Deadpool influence, I think we remember the hits more than the misses, and I don't think it was the worst thing for superhero movies. I actually think it was great. If you agree, let me know in the comments section. If you disagree, same thing, let's have that discussion. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see y'all in the next Retro Redux. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Bye bye.